The following episode can be viewed on the YouTube channel Bernie or Bust Television.
Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. It appears that the dam may be breaking and the Bernie or Bust flood may be ready to breach and come through. We've got some higher level people that are beginning to say, Michael Moore for example, that perhaps it's time to do something drastic and not wait until the summer. We need to do it now, he said. I'll show you that in a moment. But first, here's an article by Sam Shane, Why Bernie Supporters Aren't Blue No Matter Who. The time is now to vote for a candidate who is truly for the people. Millions of Bernie supporters are going to think twice before voting for a business-as-usual Democrat. Many of us aren't going to vote for a moderate conservative like Joe Biden, Amy Klobuchar, Mayor Pete, or Michael Bloomberg. We're not going to lift a finger for their campaigns as millions of us have for Sanders by lending our time to phone bank, canvass, and generate support for the independent senator, not to mention our millions of dollars in donations fueled entirely by working class people, not big corporations. That was a fairly innocuous opening. He didn't even call out Elizabeth Warren, who deserves to be called out at least as much as the rest of the people he mentioned. But now he's already worried that people are going to chop his head off. Back to Sam. I know, President Trump is awful. Please hear me out. Bernie Sanders is simply not the same as these other candidates, making it impossible to pledge to vote blue no matter who. He is speaking truth to power of the evils of the world like no other candidate is willing or able because he does not take special interest money. This is the huge distinction. Bernie's campaign is funded by working people like myself, primarily teachers. Well, he's got a lot of other workers too. Other candidates are funded by powerful corporate interests. Bernie is putting himself in a position to govern on our behalf, which is why millions of volunteers were willing to knock on 500,000 doors in Iowa, close to half of all Iowan households, and make over 10 million calls in the month of January. That type of people power is not only astonishing and the ticket to beating Trump, but it's also the first step in fundamentally changing this country and the world for the better. If you take Sanders out of the equation in November, you eliminate this enthusiasm. The blue dog sheep herders are trying to not eliminate the enthusiasm, but to co-opt it. That's what sheepdogs do. Bernie's vision transcends the uninspiring incremental progress approach of pragmatists. While other candidates say we can't afford Medicare for all, universal child care, or a Green New Deal, these ideas are central to Bernie's campaign and appeal. And why shouldn't they be? He's talking about social programs the rest of the developed world already enjoy and giving us a legitimate opportunity to be world leaders in saving our environment, an issue we are increasingly running out of time to combat. We're in an age where incremental progress isn't good enough. Under President Obama, we did next to nothing to combat the climate crisis, which needed meaningful action before he even took the helm. There's no time for incremental progress on this or other issues. Our climate is heating up today. People are not getting the health care they require to survive or not go bankrupt at this very moment. Wages are stagnant, money is increasingly funneled to the top of the economy, causing pollution in the information supply and corruption in the political process. Endless wars in the Middle East continue. The working class is abandoned. All of these things were true under George W. Bush and Obama, and they're as true today as they'd be under a Biden presidency or another 4 years of Trump. Both major parties in this country continue to move rightward as truly left-leaning people haven't had an exciting candidate to vote for in decades, if ever. Bernie Sanders embodies a shift from this rotten reality. Aside from the painfully uninspiring vision peddled by these moderate conservative Democrats, the Democratic National Committee is currently rewriting rules to stop a Sanders nomination. What incentive do Sanders supporters, a gigantic voting bloc, have to stick around and vote for some corporate hack who doesn't in any way align with their beliefs? Yes, Elizabeth, that's you. That's particularly when there was already foul play in the DNC primary a mere 4 years ago. It should be mentioned, too, that Bernie beats Trump in most polls. See realclearpolitics.com. Look, we're under no delusion that Sanders will be able to enact half of what he wants, even if those policies would undoubtedly make for a better country. But what better way to get the ball rolling for meaningful change than to nominate a candidate for the people? What better way to challenge the blatant corruption and lying demagoguery of the con man Trump than to nominate a good and decent man with a 40-year career built on consistency, positivity, and governance on behalf of the people? Sanders takes all of the anxieties people rightfully have living in this country and points the finger not at immigrants, Muslims, fake news, or any other trope weaponized by Trump. Although Trump is right about fake news. CNN, MSDNC, etc. But at the powerful corporations that are destroying the environment, the working class, and America itself. Whether you're blue no matter who or a true progressive, there is truly only one choice in 2020. Time is running out for the climate, and continuing to leave the working class behind will fuel economic anxieties, opening the door for more demagogues like Trump to run campaigns powered by xenophobia, division, and paranoia. Vote Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary and in the general election. The future of the country and the world depends upon it. What he might have added is that blue no matter who is combated perfectly by Bernie or bust. So if he had presented that idea, what he could have said then is that it won't matter if you vote for Buttigieg or Warren or Biden or any other corporate sock puppet. The Bernie or bust movement, coupled with the Bernie or Trump phenomenon in swing states, will absolutely give you Donald Trump again if you don't vote for Bernie. It's already too late to even think you can get anybody else but Bernie. We already have the numbers according to Emerson polling, and there just is no other chance that you can get a corporate candidate. There's just no other possibility than Bernie. Sam's article showed up on Boomers for Bernie, and there was quite an interesting conversation that ensued. Edwin Purcell said, "This isn't Republican versus Democrat, it's oligarchy versus democracy." And then Tina says, "No, it's oligarchy versus Bernie Sanders." Jim Fleming says, "Because all the other blue candidates are indistinguishable from repugs. Vote Bernie no matter who." Dave McAndrews is the asshole that keeps saying vote blue no matter who on a Boomers for Bernie page. We have to absolutely Twitter-pate these people into oblivion. If you're on Twitter or Facebook, you should do the Bernie bro, Bernie sister duty. And you should make sure these assholes get called out in no uncertain terms. This guy should not even be on the thread, Dave McAndrews. I hope he watches this. If you have to play the game that you will only vote for Bernie in the general election, you are handing the election to Trump. You mad, bro? What a troll. And then we get the pushback, and this is heartening because this is what should be happening to trolls like Dave McAndrews. If Bernie actually loses the nomination without the DNC rigging, then I will have to decide who I would choose. However, if the DNC rigs the nomination, then electing 45 back to office is on them, not me, just like in 2016 between the DNC and HRC. 45 getting elected was on them, not me. I won't let the DNC manipulate my vote, just as I would not toe the line when Madeleine Albright came out and said women needed to vote for HRC because she was a woman. Not happening. This is basically a Bernie or bust thread, and there are enough people that are starting to rise up as a result of all the fuckery in Iowa. It looks like Bernie or bust is going to be a thing again, and I want to make sure everybody knows to go to bernieorbust2020.us to sign the Bernie or bust pledge. If they read Ann and they say, "Hell yes, that's what we all should do. We all should be Bernie or bust." Brian replies to Dave, "It's no game. If the DNC cheats, which they already are, they deserve no votes from anyone." Starr says, "Heard that song and dance ad nauseum. We were also told Hillary would run over Trump like a steamroller. Want to beat Trump and make sure we never get another one? Stop listening to the DNC propaganda and vote for the only candidate not getting money from the 1%. Then Dave says, that's stupid, you can't do that. And on and on and on. Below that, we have some interesting memes. This one is Gallifreyan Jedi. Jedi or Gallifrey. Bernie or bust is not a group of Dems who will betray you if we don't get our way. We're a group of lefty independents and non-voters who normally wouldn't vote for your corrupt party at all, but are willing to make an exception in the event you nominate Bernie. Get it straight. Scott Marsh says, blue no matter who doesn't belong here. Get lost. Maury Ballstein says, brief lesson on how democracy actually works. Nobody is entitled to anyone else's support. It is the sole responsibility of the candidate themselves to earn support based on their own merits. Historically, Democrats do better when voter turnout is high. Historically, when given the choice between a Republican and Democrat clothing, the American electorate will consistently choose the Republican. There have always been more red votes for red no matter who than vote blue no matter who people. The American conservative will often vote based on ideology alone. For the American left and independent voters, it usually takes something a bit more substantial to actually inspire people to support someone or something. The undemocratic party, the neoliberal establishment, and the corporate-owned media should not be confused with the left. The American left have been systematically marginalized, disenfranchised, and defrauded for generations. We are currently experiencing the direct results of decades of lesser evil voting, which only paves the way for greater evil. Due to the leadership decisions of Democratic Party, quote, the party has lost over 1,000 seats in government. They have been hemorrhaging voters by the millions, and they have experienced their worst fundraising period since they decided to back W's Iraq invasion. There are now more people who identify as independents than both Democrats and Republicans combined. Personally, I'd take my protest vote over your surrender vote any day, every time. The only wasted vote is for someone that you don't like, don't trust, and who doesn't represent you in any way whatsoever. And let's not pretend that we have anything close to what should be considered legitimate elections or a functioning democracy. The United States now ranks dead last out of all Western democracies in regards to election legitimacy. It's gotten so sad that renowned international election monitoring organizations, such as Jimmy Carter's, will not even agree to oversee our elections because our elections cannot even meet a minimum standard for veracity. The charade of our fake elections are only a fraction of the completely fucked up equation that is the collapsing empire known as the USA. Regardless, what you are describing is the antithesis of democracy. What you are describing is known as extortion. And that's beautiful because what people have criticized the Bernie or Bust movement for is being an extortion racket, when the opposite is true. Bernie or Bust is the antidote to extortion. Let that one sink in, and please repeat that one ad nauseum. Bernie or Bust is the antidote to extortion. 65,853,625 voted Democrat, 62,985,105 voted Republican, 108,856,312 people that didn't owe either party jack shit because they weren't being offered any fucking representation and told your political extortion to eat a bag of dicks. Well, I like Kathy Copeland Patton, who says, vote blue no matter who you screw. Vote blue no matter who is not a means to an end. It is a means to a continuation of a failed system that got us Trump in the first place. It is giving in to a system that works against you and enabling it to continue. Julian Assange. Trump is Clinton's Frankenstein. She told DNC plus media to start building him from April 2015. WikiLeaks.org/Podesta emails. Pied Piper candidates. There are two ways to approach the strategies mentioned above. The first is to use the field as a whole to inflict damage on itself, similar to what happened to Mitt Romney in 2012. The variety of candidates is a positive here, and many of the lesser known can serve as a cudgel to move the more established candidates further to the right. In this scenario, we don't want to marginalize the more extreme candidates, but make them more Pied Piper candidates who actually represent the mainstream of the Republican Party. Pied Piper candidates include, but aren't limited to, Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, Ben Carson. We need to be elevating the Pied Piper candidates so that they are leaders of the pack and tell the press to take them seriously. That's what happened. And then the rest, as they say, is history. This is what Michael Moore had to say to Jordan Chariton after the Iowa debacle.
Whether incompetence or not, it seemed to be intentional, what they did in Iowa. You have Bernie was about to be declared the winner. Tom Perez comes out calling for a recanvassing.
Minutes before Bernie was going to have that press conference and explain why he won Iowa. And they did that to sandbag him. I ran into Tom Perez last night after the debate, and his people tried to block me from like reaching into him, which I did. You know, don't block me for Christ's sake. You know, I said, Tom, you and I need to talk. Yeah. No. We need to talk. I'm coming to D.C. and we're going to talk because you can't. You know, they took him away. You can't. The DNC can't screw this up. They have a moral responsibility to make sure that we remove Trump. And I am starting to detect from some of these DNC types that it's actually more important that they save their old corrupt system full of hacks. That's more important to them than getting rid of Trump. Anybody who puts anything ahead of when Hillary says that she doesn't know if she can endorse the candidate, meaning Bernie, then you've just told me something about yourself, and it's pretty rotten and pretty scary. That it would actually be better to have Trump than Bernie. That's exactly what she said. She didn't say it in those words, but that's what Biden said when he said he didn't know if he could commit to endorsing Bernie. And on and on and on. And that's why another whole segment of the Democratic Party hack establishment is backing Bloomberg. He's now their great white hope because Biden isn't doing so well. They thought Pete maybe could be, but I don't think that's going to go very well. Who knows?
The Bernie supporters watching at home very anxious because it looks like what they're doing now makes 2016 look like child's play.
You should be anxious. You should be very worried. They've got more money than us. They hold the power. Here's the power we hold. We've got more people. There are more people that believe in the things that we believe in than what they believe in. A lot more. By tens of millions more. So, what do we do with that? How do we organize that? Because it will not happen just with people sitting at home watching this or looking at your device or listening to this on the way to work or whatever. It is time to make a stand and make it now. Do not plan on making the stand in the summer. It has to be made right now in February. We have to go full tilt against what the DNC is doing about this.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to Step.
And what was he about to say, Jordan? Suspiciously, it sounded as if he was about to say, we need to go full tilt. We need to be Bernie or bust. But if he didn't say it, I think he was implying that was the way to go. But if he is unwilling to say it, it's because he's a sheepdog. But what I know about you, Jordan, is that you're connected to the Young Turks who took $20 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg and others from the Clinton machine, basically. We know that Cenk came out and told us to vote for Hillary. I don't know what you would say. I've never heard you say Bernie or bust. I've never heard you say it's a good idea, at least. I think that would be really appropriate at this moment. I'm really suspicious of why you cut away from Michael at that moment and then just made your fundraising pitch. What the fuck is going on here? Going back to Boomers for Bernie, open letter to the DNC. You cheat, we bust. This was a very useful thread this morning. To the DNC. Open letter to the DNC. You cheat, we bust. Campaign created by Uncle Samantha. Dear DNC, if you cheat us out of a Bernie Sanders nomination, again, we solemnly swear to sit out the 2020 presidential election. If you cheat, we refuse to play the game. If you cheat, you ensure 4 more years of Donald Trump. We will not support any other candidate should you rig the election. If you cheat, Bernie Sanders supporters will not support your corporate demagogues. Therefore, you will lose. We have the numbers to make sure of it. Think we are bluffing? Try us. You tried us in 2016? Try us again. Better yet, play fair. Listen to the voice of the people. Respect our vote. Furthermore, those individuals in the DNC who conspire to cheat can expect to receive public ridicule. It's a law of nature that what goes around comes around. If you conspire to cheat us and our families out of health care, you may want to be concerned for you and your family's own health. Think you can cheat us out of education, health care, and a livable world? Think again. Think very carefully. This is a life or death situation for millions of people, for our democracy, for the planet. This is a high-stakes game. If you cheat, our movement will make absolutely sure that you will regret your decision. Don't do it, or you will face the wrath, the ridicule, and the revenge of millions of Americans. Sincerely, the millions of American people who support Bernie Sanders and who demand Medicare for all, free public college, immigration reform, and a Green New Deal. Why is this important? The DNC believes it can cheat the people out of a Sanders presidency and win. It can cheat, but it cannot cheat and win. You cheat, you lose. You cheat, we bust. Choose wisely. The world is depending on it. You cheat, we bust. Now, I didn't write this petition because I would have written it better, but Uncle Samantha has a good point. And I think that this is sort of what Michael Moore may have been talking about. This is the kind of drastic action that we need to take now and not wait until July. Although I'm going to be at the convention in Milwaukee in July, and I'm going to be there ready to wade into the streets if things go awry, as you should be, as we all should be, just like in Puerto Rico when they were trying to change things. Just like in Brazil when the truckers are trying to get things to change. There's a lot going on in the world, and it looks like people, crowds of people, demanding change. That's what we need. Bernie or bust is mild compared to some of the actions that may ensue if they try to steal this from Bernie again. Farther down the thread, it's Axios.com. Iowa Democratic Party releases national delegate totals. Iowa Democrats give Buttigieg the most delegates as Sanders' team seeks recanvass. So the corrupt Iowa establishment Democrats have tried to give it to Pete, and it's just not going to happen. There's a paper trail. We're going to get it figured out again. At the very best, Pete could say he got a tie in the delegates, but he isn't going to come out with a win if they actually count things correctly. Errors in the results have led the Times and others to refrain from calling the race, and the Sanders campaign manager said a partial recanvass of precincts could change the outcome. By Trip Gabriel, February 9th. So this is brand new. Des Moines. Nearly a full week after the Iowa caucuses, the state Democratic Party on Sunday released results indicating that Pete Buttigieg, the former mayor of South Bend, was the winner after it updated data from 55 precincts. But errors in the result tabulations have led several news organizations, including the New York Times, to refrain from calling the race. And shortly after the party's announcement, Senator Bernie Sanders' campaign manager Fez Shakir said the campaign would be calling for a partial recanvass of the results. The deadline for a campaign to make such a request is noon Central Time on Monday. The party's re-examination did not change earlier projections that Mr. Buttigieg led in the count of national delegates, but it moved one more into his column. The party said that Mr. Buttigieg had received 14 delegates. Senator Bernie Sanders took 12. Senator Elizabeth Warren earned 8. Former Vice President Joseph R. Biden received 6, and Senator Amy Klobuchar got 1. The Associated Press, which historically verifies election results and makes calls on the outcome of races, has not allotted the final delegate to Mr. Buttigieg because of the errors in the caucus results counting, nor has the AP declared a winner in the Iowa race. The Times, which has followed the AP's calls in the past, has not assigned the final delegate to Mr. Buttigieg. In an interview with CNN, Mr. Shakir expressed confidence that Mr. Sanders would have the same number of national delegates as Mr. Buttigieg after it's all said and done, suggesting that the Sanders campaign believed a recanvass could result in a delegate being reassigned from Mr. Buttigieg to Mr. Sanders. A Sanders aide confirmed that the campaign would be seeking a partial recanvass of results. The Iowa Democratic Party did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Yeah. All the money behind Wine Cave Pete. Mayor cheat, you are really trying to take this election away from Bernie. We know you don't have any black support. We know you don't have any way to win. But winning for you means blocking Bernie in the early states. That was your part of the deal, Mr. CIA Pete. And we're not going to have it. Bernie or bust is the answer to shady dealings like yours. I'll close it out with this City Extra Daily. Bernie or bust. The Sanders supporters who will back Trump if their man isn't the Democratic nominee. This is from January 15th. Bernie or bust is their rallying cry, and many Sanders supporters say they will vote for President Trump if their candidate is denied the Democratic nomination a second time. After the 2016 election, the Cooperative Congressional Election Study found about 12% of those who voted for Sanders in the Democratic primaries voted for Trump in the general election. There are early signs that Sanders' fervor is so strong that this could double in 2020. a development that could hand the White House to Trump for a second term. An Emerson College poll this month showed 26% of those who support Sanders in the Democratic primaries and caucuses would support Trump over Senator Elizabeth Warren, despite their overlapping policy positions. The Sanders to Trump inclination stems in part from the belief that the Democratic National Committee cheated Sanders in the bitter 2016 primary with the superdelegate system and Democratic staff bias in favor of eventual nominee Hillary Clinton. Concern over establishment control of the nomination process and other aspects of the campaign season persist among Sanders loyalists. If they cheat again, I have told people I will vote for Trump, Pennsylvania resident and Sanders supporter Keith Ward, 58, told the Washington Examiner. Not because I like him, because if this country is going down a slippery slope, they have no one to blame but themselves, no matter how much damage I believe Trump is doing. Ward voted for Sanders in the 2016 Democratic primary and for Green Party candidate Jill Stein in the general election. I felt I had no choice, he said, adding that he felt his 2016 vote would send a message. I'm just not sure the Democratic Party heard it. Well, of course they didn't hear it because they wanted Trump anyway. They still want Trump anyway. So none of this is going to bluff them. The only hope we have, people, is to get the comfortable Democrats to vote for Bernie in the primaries. That's why Michael Moore said we can't wait until the summer. We have to be very vocal now on social media, everywhere we can be, in our neighborhoods. We have to be vocal now to ensure that the comfortable Democrats swing around behind Bernie in February and March and April. This is serious. This is timely. We need to get this news out now. Another Sanders supporter expressed a similar sentiment. If the DNC screws him again, like it's already looking they will, I will stay home on voting day. Hell, I may vote for Trump just to make sure their candidate loses. Now, you won't have to. There are plenty of other people who will do it if you don't. The Trump presidency adds a layer of complication to the Bernie or bust mentality. We have the ultimate swamp monster in the White House. Stephen, a 39-year-old Sanders supporter from Massachusetts, told the Washington Examiner. While he said it will be hard to cave to the Democratic Party establishment if it doesn't play fair and Sanders doesn't win the nomination, he will probably do what Sanders recommends and vote for the Democratic ticket if he thinks the candidate can defeat Trump. But we already know the candidate can't defeat Trump because of the swing voters in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin who will vote directly for Trump. Wake up, Stephen. It's not going to happen. You might as well just vote for Mickey Mouse because none of those establishment Democrats have any chance at all of defeating Donald Trump because of the elephant in the room of the Bernie or Trump swing voters. But Democrats' fear of Trump also serves as leverage for Sanders loyalists. There you go. That point hasn't been said in print that I've ever seen. By threatening to vote against a moderate or establishment candidate or not to vote at all, Bernie or bust could push candidates leftward. A 41-year-old Sanders supporter who is a nurse and lives outside Charlotte, North Carolina, said that if Sanders loses, his vote in the 2020 general election would depend on the Democratic nominee if he votes at all. He would vote for Warren or Tulsi Gabbard, but former Vice President Joe Biden, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, and California Senator Kamala Harris are among those on his no list. So for these voters, what we need to tell them is that everyone is on the Bernie or bust no list and the Bernie or Trump no list. So it's too late. You can't change it. Do the math. There's nothing you can do about it, so you might as well just stay home or vote green or write in Bernie or write in Mickey Mouse, whatever you feel like. But you're not going to do anything to help defeat Donald Trump if you don't vote for Bernie in the primaries and get other people to do the same. Maybe we'd be in a better position to reform government in 2024 after 4 more years of Trump than we would be under a Democrat who will lull us to sleep with charisma while bombing thousands of people abroad and doing nothing to help the working class, he told the Washington Examiner. Well, that 41-year-old supporter had that part right. That's what happened with Barack Hope and Change Obama. We're no better off with Barack Obama than we are with Donald Trump or Bill Clinton or George W. Bush or Ronald Reagan or Jimmy Carter even. We've got neoliberalism going back a long way, and we need to fix this shit now. What's going on now with the fucking in Iowa and higher level people like Chapo Trap House and others saying, hey, we're Bernie or bust. DSA had a Bernie or bust resolution. We've got more and more high level people, not just Susan Sarandon this time, saying it's time. It's time, people. Bernie or bust. It's time. Now. Let's do it. You can't squeeze the toothpaste back into the tube. It's over. Bernie or bust is out on the loose. It's bigger and better and badder than it was last time. And everyone better pay attention, because Donald Trump is the foregone conclusion if you don't. I'm trying not to blink, because we won't blink first. Get on board the Bernie or bust train. Come get on board the Bernie or bust train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Oh, get on board the Bernie or bust train.
The preceding episode can be viewed on the YouTube channel Bernie or Bust Television.